best route from the UK to the south of France if you like to drive roads like this. Here's a rough overview of the route. I planned this route because I wanted to take the time to enjoy driving down to the south of France, stopping anywhere that looked interesting, eating all of the food, and experiencing some great driving roads. But I also didn't want to take weeks meandering through the Alps looking for the ultimate road. This route took around 3 days, averaging an easy 5 hours driving a day. The first leg was from home just outside of London, down to Reims via Le Shuttle. This was pretty boring and took about 5 hours. Fortunately, at the other end you are met by the famous abandoned racetrack just before entering Reims town, which is a great place to take some pictures and stretch your legs. We then proceeded to Reims where we stopped for the night, which was surprisingly nice. I felt like it was like a micro Paris. Before leaving the next day, be sure to check out the town of Chalons-en-Champagne. The next leg of the trip is a big slog on the autoroute down to Grenoble. You could break it up with stops at Dijon, Lyon, or even take a detour to Geneva. The reason I didn't is because of France's very complicated emission zone systems. Because I was driving a 1993 petrol car which doesn't qualify for a CritAir sticker and also doesn't yet qualify for historic vehicle status, which basically means I had to dodge certain areas at certain times. On the Green Zones app you can input your registration, fuel type and year of car to get up-to-date emission zone information for your particular vehicle. The reason this is so useful is because some emission zones, like the one we passed through surrounding Grenoble, aren't constantly restricted. Instead, restrictions for older vehicles, HGVs and the like are only actioned when a period of poor air quality is recorded. Luckily we made it down to Grenoble without having to make any detours to avoid emission zones. That was the last long stint on the autoroutes done. Now the fun could start, enjoying the legendary route Napoleon. We stopped at pretty much every lake between Grenoble and Gap whilst following the route Napoleon. My favourite was without doubt Lake Montagnard, which is well known for its crazy suspension bridges. Most of the driving from Grenoble to Gap is quite sedate, but this last section descending into Gap is really nice. We actually made a stop at Gap for the night. We did very little driving this day as we were busy exploring the lakes and small villages we passed through. We stopped here more through convenience, but we were pleasantly surprised by the old town. Make sure you check it out if you're passing through. The next day was a real fun day of driving the route Napoleon. The first leg out of Gap was scenic, but the roads were a little too straight and flat for my liking. But once you're off the A51 and onto the N85, the fun really begins. Here's a bit of jerky time-lapse to make you feel a bit sick. There are a few speed cameras through the villages, mostly forward-facing, but likely you'll be taking it easy through there anyway. On the switchbacks you won't be able to really get over the speed limit anyway, so you're pretty much all fine. Unless you're a maniac or driving something a little bit too crazy for its own good. But do be careful not to fry your brakes. I did roast my brakes on several occasions, which led to me having lovely squeaky brakes for the rest of the holiday. I'd say 95% of the route Napoleon is nice and wide, and I'd be more than confident bringing a caravan or a supercar through there. But there's the odd occasion like this that even in my small 190 I did feel like I needed to just be a little bit slimmer than I was. After all that, Castellane is a very welcome lunch stop. My only criticism of Castellane was that we visited during the pandemic and it was very hard to avoid people through the old town. But other than that, it really is a beautiful little village. Just up the road from Castellane you have Lac de Castellon, which is beautiful and lovely to swim in. But there is also this gigantic dam which you can drive over. If you're a little bit nerdy like me, it's worth visiting the lake for that alone. After stopping for lunch and a quick swim at the lake at Castellane, we continued down to the Riviera, which for me, this last leg is the highlight of the trip. The roads are great to drive spiritedly as you wind down the hills to the coast. This feeling, twinned with an immense feeling of satisfaction that you've made it down to the south of France without a breakdown, makes it all worthwhile. Thanks for watching. Here are a few clips once down on the Riviera. After this, we proceeded to pretty much do a clockwise lap of France, stopping at Saint-Tropez, Toulouse, Bordeaux, La Rochelle and Normandy. I may make a video about this in future and the route I took.